Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future News Daily, where I bring you the latest advancements in technology, longevity, science, medicine, and AI. Today is Friday, November 25th. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bells. With that being said, let's get started. So, first up today is 90% of Americans consume too much salt, according to the CDC. So, 9 in 10 Americans consume more than the recommended limits for sodium, which mostly comes from salt in the diet. In excess of which leads to high blood pressure, raising the risk of cardiovascular diseases, including heart attack and stroke. Thus concludes a report from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, published in the latest Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, or the MMWR. The report says over 90% of children, 89% and 89% of adults in the U.S., irrespective of age, race, gender, or having high blood pressure, consume more than the recommended limits for sodium, not including salt added to the food at the table. So, even much more so than that. CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden says, quote, "Finding that 9 out of 10 adults and children still consume too much salt is alarming," end quote. The limits, as given in the 2015 to 2020 dietary guidelines for Americans, state that people over the age of 14 should consume no more than 2,300 milligrams per day, which is the equivalent to 1 single teaspoon of salt, and less if they're younger than 14. The dietary guidelines, revised every 5 years, are based on the latest scientific evidence, which Dr. Friedman says clearly shows, quote, "Too much sodium in our foods leads to high blood pressure, a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke," end quote. Around 1 in 3 adult Americans, around 70 million people, have high blood pressure, and only half of them have it under control. Heart disease and stroke kills more Americans every year than any other cause. Together with other cardiovascular diseases, they claim more than 800,000 lives each year in the U.S. and cost the nation nearly $320 billion a year in healthcare cost and lost productivity. While one way to cut back on sodium is to go easy on the salt shaker, most of the sodium that Americans consume comes from packaged, processed foods and restaurant meals. Dr. Frieden quotes, or is quoted here saying, "Reducing sodium in manufactured and restaurant foods will give consumers more choice and save lives." For the report, CDC researchers calculated how much sodium Americans are eating from dietary data captured in the 2009 to 2012 National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, which included over 15,000 people. They found that excess sodium consumption is a problem across all groups, regardless of gender, race, and health status. However, levels of excess vary within groups. For example, more men, 98%, consume too much sodium than women, which is 80%, and 90% of white adults consume too much, compared with 85% of black adults. Also, while sodium consumption exceeds recommended limits in all age groups, it peaks between the ages of 19 and 50, as does calorie consumption. Equally alarming is the fact that among people at higher risk of heart disease or stroke, such as people over 50s, people over 50, black people, and those whose blood pressure is high or approaching, so pre-hypertension, more than 3 out of 4 consume more than the recommended limit of 2,300 per day. So high-risk people are, especially in this category. So little change over the past decade, they say. The CDC researchers say that the new figures show there has been little change in Americans' sodium consumption over the last 10 years. And because so much of it comes from food not prepared in the home, such as processed and restaurant foods, consumers have little choice unless they're cooking all of their food themselves. The CDC says there is a need to lower sodium intake in the U.S. population by gradually reducing levels in the nation's food supply. They suggest there is a small movement in this direction, as some food processing companies are voluntarily reducing sodium in their products and others begin to follow suit. The report also notes the important part of health professionals can play in helping patients reduce their excessive salt intake. One of the authors, Sandra Jackson, an epidemiologist in CDC's Division for Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention, concludes, quote, "Sodium reduction is a key part of preventing heart disease and stroke. Reducing sodium is an achievable and effective strategy to improve heart health for everyone. but it's going to take all of us working together to make it possible, end quote. And I personally, lately, the past couple of years, been looking at nutrition facts on packaged things a lot more, and man, the percentages of sodium on there is absolutely astounding. I mean, things that you wouldn't even think. One slice of bread might be 10% of your sodium for the day, not exaggerating at all. And things that you think are healthy, like frozen vegetables, they chock full of salt just to preserve it longer. So really, really need to be aware of that consciously, and not just assume that because you're eating vegetables or because you're eating from, not McDonald's, that you're suddenly eating healthy. No, you take it into your own hands. Moving on. Repeated stress accelerates aging of the eye. So, new research from the University of California, Irvine, suggests that aging is an important component of retinal ganglion cell death in glaucoma, and that novel pathways can be targeted when designing new treatments for glaucoma patients. The study, titled Stress-Induced Aging in Mouse Eye, was published today in Aging Cell, along with her colleagues Dorota Skaronska Krazik, PhD assistant professor in the Department of Physiology and Biophysics and Ophthalmology at the faculty of the Center for Translational Vision Research at the UCI School of Medicine. So they describe the transcriptional and epigenetic changes happening in aging retina. The team shows how stress, such as intraocular pressure, elevation in the eye, causes retinal tissue to undergo epigenetic and transcriptional changes similar to natural aging, and how in young retinal tissue, repetitive stress induces features of accelerated aging, including the accelerated epigenetic age. Aging is a universal process that affects all cells in an organism, obviously. In the eye, it is a major risk factor for a group of neuropathies called glaucoma. Because of the increase in aging populations worldwide, current estimates show that the number of people with glaucoma, aged 40 to 80, will increase to over 110 million in 2040. Quote, our work emphasizes the importance of early diagnosis and prevention, as well as age-specific management of age-related diseases, including glaucoma, said Skaronska Krazik. The epigenetic changes we observed suggest that changes on the chromatin level are acquired in an accumulative way following several instances of stress. This provides us with a window of opportunity for the prevention of vision loss if and when the disease is recognized early. In humans, IOP has a circadian rhythm in healthy individuals that oscillates typically in the 12 to 21 millimeter per, I'm not sure what this unit of measure is, it's capital H, lowercase g range, and tends to be highest in approximately 2/3 of individuals during the nocturnal period. Due to IOP fluctuations, a single IOP measurement is often insufficient to characterize the real pathology and risk of disease progression in glaucoma patients. Long-term IOP fluctuations have been reported to be a strong predictor for glaucoma progression. This new study suggests that the cumulative impact of the fluctuations of IOP is directly responsible for the aging of the tissue. Quote, our work shows that even moderate hydrostatic IOP elevation results in retinal ganglion cell loss and corresponding visual defects when performed on aged animals, end quote, said Skaronska Krazik. They continue, we are continuing to work to understand the mechanism of accumulative changes in aging in order to find potential targets for therapeutics. We are also testing different approaches to prevent the accelerated aging process resulting from stress. Researchers now have the new tool to estimate the impact of stress and treatment on the aging status of retinal tissue, which has made these new discoveries possible. In collaboration with the Clock Foundation and Steve Horvath, PhD, from Atlas Labs, who pioneered the development of epigenetic clocks that can measure age based on methylation changes in the DNA of tissues, it was possible for researchers to show that repetitive, mild IOP elevation can accelerate epigenetic age of the tissues. In addition to measuring vision decline and some structural changes due to stress and potential treatment, we can now measure the epigenetic age of retinal tissue and use it to find the optimal strategy to prevent vision loss in aging, said Skaronska Krazik. This research was funded in part by the National Institute of Health, Foundation for Polish Science, and the European Union under the European Regional Development Fund. Alrighty. So, and it has a little disclaimer down here. As with anything you read on the internet, this article should not be constructed as medical advice. Please talk to your doctor, etc. Alright, so I guess a lot of, at least some of these today are kind of more warnings than preventions, or, well, you know, it's more preventative medicine than retroactive, I suppose. Anyway, moving on to my favorite article of the day. Magnetic field tech captures the quote-unquote song of a drug. So it's not a very good way of saying it, in my opinion, but this is a really, really interesting article. So this company, I guess it's pronounced Emulate Therapeutics, uses magnetic field technology to emulate drug effects in humans and animal models without using chemicals. So they literally replicate the magnetic field of the drug if it were like what it would look like if it were there, and then they just use the magnetic field without using the actual chemical. That is crazy insane to me. So let's read on and see what this is all about. So magnetic fields are all around us. They exist whenever there is electric current and have been used in various aspects of medicine for decades. Today, magnetic fields are used in applications including magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, bone fracture repair, wound healing, and pain reduction. Taking things a step further, U.S. startup Emulate Therapeutics has developed a unique magnetic field technology that has been used or shown to replicate the effect of drugs in humans and animal models, all without the presence of chemicals. Having spun out companies in cancer, pain management, and beyond, the company is seeking partners for longevity applications of its technology. So it has a bold quote down here. The concept behind Emulate's approach is mind-boggling. The company, quote-unquote, records the electromagnetic signature of specific molecules and is then able to use those recordings to affect changes in cellular behavior without using chemicals. In its most advanced program, Emulate's technology has completed feasibility clinical trials for adults and children with terminal brain cancer using a recording derived from chemotherapy drug paclitaxel. Paclitaxel? Yeah. We caught up with Emulate CEO Chris Rivera to find out more. So Emulate has more than 40 patents on its proprietary technology, which uses ultra-low radio frequency energy to produce therapeutic biological effects. The technology builds on ultra-sensitive listening devices developed by the U.S. government during the Cold War period. Wow. Quote, these superconducting quantum interference devices, or SQUIDs for short, are extremely sensitive listening devices called magnetometers, says Rivera. They continue, quote, but instead of using a magnetometer to listen to a conversation in Beijing or Moscow or a submarine in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we use it to listen to molecules. Wow, this is really interesting. Emulate, quote, listens to specific molecules in a solution that is chilled in liquid helium to 4.4 Kelvin, or negative 270 degrees Celsius. So that is somewhat close to absolute zero. That's quite a feat. Quote, we supercool our acquisition system so it's basically as quiet as being in outer space, says Rivera. And when our target molecule is in that solution, it begins to tumble and turn, and it leaves a minute magnetic wake. Think of a canoe going down a canal, and that wake is full of digital information. So like the ripples in the water they're comparing it to. Emulate's magnetometer is sensitive enough and the environment is quiet enough that allows the company to measure and record the magnetic wake over time. Rivera is quoted here saying again, this gives us millions and millions of data points, and we convert that time domain series into a wave file. The analogy I use is that we're recording the song of a molecule. This is blowing my mind, man. So Emulate has now recorded the song of dozens, if not hundreds, of biological models. Rivera says again, quote, we've demonstrated that every song we record from each different molecule has a different caricature, a different signature, and they all work differently. They all create different reactions in biological systems, end quote. Man, this might be one of the greatest inventions that we've had in such a generation, or even in any modern medicine ever. I mean, this is wild. In 2019, Emulate spun out consumer technology company Happy, which focuses on wellness applications, but the company is also focused on developing therapeutic approaches for cancer, mental health, pain management, and animal health, and has spun out new companies in all these areas. Using Emulate's work in brain cancer as an example, Rivera explains how the company recorded the signature of chemo drug paclitaxel, and then built a device to be worn on the head that would allow the wave file to be played back into the patient's brain. We bathe the entire brain in the song or the digital information of paclitaxel, says Rivera, and our preclinical results confirm that the cancer is responding to that magnetic field as if the drug was there. But the drug is not there. Only the digital information from the drug is being produced, and we're seeing very positive biological effects. I mean, is this not blowing anyone else's brain right now? Like, what? In the area of pain management, Emulate has derived signals derived from compounds including fentanyl, naproxen, and CBD. Wow. The company recently published data that showed statistically significant reduction in visceral, neuropathic, and inflammatory pain in animal models. While the details of the mechanism of action are not fully understood, the company hypothesizes that its recordings capture the, quote, non-covalent features of the recorded molecule that can alter cellular behavior. Quote, we emulate molecules that work non-covalently, meaning that they don't bind to cells or receptor sites, says Rivera. They continue. Some 60% of approved drugs work in this way. When they come close to their target, whether it's a cell or protein, they exchange information. And we believe that information is energy going from the molecule to the receptor site or the cell. There are several advantages of using Emily's technology, most of which are probably pretty obvious. 2 years ago in March, we decided to look into the area of psychedelics for mental health, and so we recorded things like psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine, he says. We took the wave files with the songs of those agents to a crow, I don't know what a crow is, CRO, all caps, in Europe in the summer to conduct preclinical experiments in validated animal models, and we had the data reported by September. So, in less than a year, for less than $500,000, we went from an idea to confirming the technology work in those models, and we had enough animal data that we're now ready to go to phase 1 in human clinical trials. You know how many billions of dollars go into R&D for actual chemicals, and this is $500,000 in a couple months. Oh my God, this is going to change everything. Oh my God. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind right now. The ability to deliver locally is a key benefit, particularly when it comes to the brain. So this is a wave file. You can replicate it infinitely. You can send it anywhere instantly. Anyway, let me continue. Collect myself. A lot of drugs and technologies have failed because many drugs can't get past the blood-brain barrier. And if you watched a couple of my videos before, this was one of the biggest hurdles for even some of the most, up to date or, ahead of the game, longevity, pills, chemicals, what have you. Emulate also believes that its chemical-free approach can have great benefits when it comes to well-publicized challenges of drugs like opioids. Quote, our recent pain management publication showed we could emulate the effects of fentanyl and morphine. If you are experiencing side effects, you can take the device off, and typically within 15 to 20 minutes, it subsides. So, we believe we would have a lesser propensity for addiction. We can offer rapid onset, rapid decline, and fewer side effects. We can treat locally, we can potentially treat systematically, and we can pass the blood-brain barrier, which is a huge advantage compared to a lot of drugs, chemicals, and chemistries. So the road to longevity is the next category, section of the article. From a longevity perspective, Emulate says that its pain studies show the technology's potential against inflammation. The company also has demonstrated its effectiveness in areas such as anxiety reduction, sleep improvement, and even cardiovascular performance. And it's not drugs themselves. We can also mimic other chemistries like small inhibitor RNAs. Our technology can target specific genes at will, so we can look to do direct gene silencing. While Emulate has not yet spun out a company specifically for longevity applications, Rivera explains that they just need the right partner. Based on the multitude of opportunities we now have a vertical subsidiary for cancer, one for pain management, one for mental health, and one for animal health, he says. We have not created one yet for longevity, but it could be very easily done. So just first time I'm hearing any of this, but I'm thinking, so if it's just something you're essentially playing it's a headset I'm thinking you wear and you get the magnetic fields, played into you, is what they said. You can just download these off the internet, can't you? I mean, this is essentially the cost of drugs goes down to zero because it's all digitized. I mean, and it's like it would become so widespread, and I mean, it's impossible to like control or censor like digital files. I mean, they're so pervasive, and there's no way to stop that transfer. That's why music has become free and so many other things have become free, because there's no way to profit off of that. So, I mean, would everything I'm thinking all medicine would just become free in the form of digital wave files or something. I don't know. That's what it sounds like. I have no idea, but this is probably the wildest article I have read to date since I started this page. So I'm throwing that out there. Okay, now, where were we? Okay, quote, based on the multitude of opportunities we now have a vertical subsidiary. Oh, sorry, I read that already. Next paragraph down. We are the experts in the technology. When we create a subsidiary, we're looking to partner with experts in those fields. That partnership could either be a joint venture, or we could have a direct investment and spin it out, take it public, like Hatbee, or be acquired. It ends with one more quote. We could very easily create a longevity subsidiary where we would develop the technology, create the wave files, and create the form factors for delivering. The partner would bring the expertise to develop and eventually commercialize it. My God. All right, let's finish up here. We still got some good stuff. Next up, healthful habits of Super-Agers. So, Super-Agers, just to clarify, are people aged 80 or over who exhibit cognitive functions comparable to a middle-aged person, and they typically exhibit less brain volume loss. So the researchers used MRI scans to measure the thickness of the area in the brain called the cortex in two groups of subjects, 24 Super-Agers and 12 controls. Generally, a normally aging adult will lose around 2.24% of brain volume per year. That's a good amount. However, the Super-Agers lost only around 1.06%, so less than half. It was suggested that because the Super-Agers lose their brain volume more slowly than their peers, they may be better protected from dementia. In addition to losing brain volume more slowly than their peers, Super-Agers tend to also have several healthful anti-aging habits in common that may be helping them to remain cognitively young. Super-Agers tend to be very active. Staying active is well documented to be beneficial for both body and mind, and it's one of the best things you can do as you age. Regular exercise helps your heart and muscle strength training can help to reduce the risk of falls. Together, they make a winning combination of physical activity that results in increased oxygen intake that helps the body perform at optimal levels while reducing the risk of chronic diseases. Exercising also helps to maintain a healthy weight, which is important to the brain because having a body mass index of over 30 triples the risk for AD. I'm not sure what AD is. That dementia? Alzheimer's dementia? Anyway. Cognitive fitness is just as important as physical fitness. Mental activity has many forms, and Super-Agers seem to really enjoy continuing to challenge their minds. You can stimulate and engage your brain in a variety of ways, such as Sudoku, reading, learning a new language, painting, drawing, or taking a class to learn something that you are not familiar with. Super-Agers also tend to be social butterflies, reporting that they enjoy maintaining strong bonds and social relationships with both friends and family. According to Emily Rajalski, a neuroscientist at Northwestern who led the study, The attention region in their brain is larger than their peers, and this area is full of von Economo neurons, which are thought to play a role in social processing and awareness. Autopsies have revealed that this group has more than 4 to 5 times the number of these neurons than an average octogenarian, as in an 80-year-old plus. Quote, "It's not as simple as saying if you have a strong social network, you'll never get Alzheimer's," says Dr. Rajowski. But there is a list of healthy choices that one can make, such as eating a certain diet and not smoking. Maintaining strong social networks may be an important one on that list. Super-Agers also like to enjoy life and indulge themselves, but these fitness buffs know that the key to this is to do it in moderation. They may indulge in dark chocolate, a nightcap, or an occasional glass of alcohol, but they don't make it a habit. Those who did occasionally drink were 23% less likely to develop AD or signs of memory problems than their non-drinking peers. That's very interesting. It's important to note how important moderation is, and this group adhered to drinking less than the guideline limits, which I guess the ones they're going off is the 2 drink per day for men, 1 for women. So keep that very much in mind. So they did less than that, and that was showed to have that 23% less likely to develop AD. Although certain Alzheimer's disease, they're just shortening that. Anyway, although certain diets are recommended for optimal brain health, such as the MIND diet, all in caps, I'm guessing that's an acronym, which is a plant-based diet that combines the DASH and the Mediterranean diets that have been shown to reduce the risk of dementia, these super-agers did not follow perfect diets. A diet that is free from processed foods, that is rich in fish, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and legumes, helps to lower inflammation and oxidative stress, which are known causes of chronic diseases and other conditions. Super-agers listen to their body for signs of when it is time to see a physician. However, some changes in the brain that can be common components of aging can make it hard to know when it is time to visit a doctor. Taking proactive and preventative measures can help, but it's important to watch for memory issues and identify them as early on as possible and consult your physician. So this is pretty long. Oh, got a couple articles. I know this is a Super-Agers article. People who tend to watch these videos are more younger, but the steps you want to take to become this person, you want to do them now. 18 to 30, you're the first third of your life, to become this type of person at 80, which is why I show it to you now. So this group tends to maintain the recommended anti-aging lifestyle, which includes, but is not limited to, keeping stress in check, maintaining a healthy BMI, regular exercise, challenging their minds, nurturing social bonds, following a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, having a positive mindset, and being mindful, which can help to protect your brains as you age. While prevention is always better than a cure, there are some risk factors that can't be changed and you can't control, such as age. For most people, symptoms appear at around 65 years old, with the risk of Alzheimer's doubling every 5 years. Gender, although this area is still under research, women are likely to get AD, and the odds of this increase after menopause. Those with a family history of Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and those with more than one family member diagnosis are at an even higher risk. Alrighty. That's it for that one. The last one I have for you today. Let's see what we got here. Oh, very interesting. So this is using wave power so a machine is harnessing hydroelectric power to produce drinking water from the ocean. In paraphrasing that title. So Ocean Oasis says its technology will enable, quote, the production of fresh water from ocean waters by harnessing the energy of the waves to carry out a desalination process. Development of the prototype has received financial backing from a range of organizations, including Innovation Norway and the Gran Canaria Economic Promotion Society. The Canary Islands are a Spanish archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean. Plans to use marine energy to desalinate water received a further boost this week after a Norwegian firm presented a system that will be put through its paces in waters off Gran Canaria. In a statement Monday, Oslo, headquartered in Ocean Oasis, said its wave-powered prototype device, which it described as being an, quote, offshore floating desalination plant, was called Gaia. Nice word for that. The plant, which has a height of 10 meters, a diameter of 7 meters, and weighs roughly 100 tons, was put together in Las Palmas and will undergo testing at the oceanic platform of the Canary Islands. Ocean Oasis said its technology would enable... they already had that quote up earlier. I don't know why they repeat themselves. The company said the development of its prototype had received financial backing from a major organization. Something repeating itself again. So, alright, not a very long article. Okay. Excuse me, so a little bit left down here. So the Canary Islands are a Spanish archipelago, etc., etc. A presentation from the ITC highlights some of the reason why. Describing the Canary Islands water singularities, it refers to a structural water deficit due to low rainfall, high soil permeability, and aquifer overexploitation. So I guess that's why they chose to do it there. The need seems to be more prevalent. So while desalination, which multinational energy firm Iberdrola describes as the process by which the dissolved mineral salts in water are removed, is seen as a useful tool when it comes to providing drinking water to countries where supply is an issue. The UN has noted there are significant environmental challenges linked to it. It says that the fossil fuels normally used in the energy-intensive desalination process contribute to global warming, and the toxic brine it produces pollutes coal systems, thereby kind of making it defeats the purpose of doing it in the first place. So that does make sense. With the above in mind, projects looking to desalinate water in a more sustainable way will become increasingly important in the years ahead. The idea of using waves to power desalination is not unique to the project being undertaken in the Canaries. In April, for example, the U.S. Department of Energy revealed the winners of the last stage of a competition focused on wave-powered desalination. Back on the Canary Islands, Ocean Oasis said it would be looking to construct a second installation after testing at the Plokin facility had taken place. Quote, in this phase, the prototype will be scaled with the capacity to produce water for consumption, the company said. While there is excitement about the potential for marine energy, the footprint of wave and tidal steam projects remains very small compared to other renewables. So in data released in March 2022, Ocean Energy Europe said 2.2 megawatts of tidal stream capacity was installed in Europe last year, compared to just 260 kilowatts in 2020. So that's, about tenfold in 2 years, so quite an increase, roughly, almost tenfold. For wave energy, 681 kilowatts was installed, which OEE said, with Ocean Energy Europe, said was a threefold increase. Globally, 1.38 megawatts of wave energy came online in 2021, while 3.12 megawatts of tidal stream capacity was installed. By way of comparison, Europe installed 17.4 gigawatts of wind power capacity in 2021, according to figures from industry body Wind Europe. All right. Well, that is the last article I have for you today. Quite a very, very good video today. This magnetic field technology is going to blow people's minds. That is going to change everything. I'm sorry. Just really do some more research into that, because I certainly will. Anyway, I will never recommend investments, just to let you know. Disclaimer, I'll never recommend investments, solicit your time or money, attempt to contact you on any other platform, or own any rights to the information within this content. And with that being said, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.